great pleasure to be here today, and it's great to see so many of you. I know some of you, and some of you I don't. But we're here today to remember a great man, John Tyndall. Now, John Tyndall is someone that many of us will have memories of, as John Tyndall was a man that inspired generations of nationalists. My defining memory of John Tyndall was from a long time ago. It wasn't actually at the trial, where we were both on trial for race hate. It was actually long before that. My first ever BMP meeting, I went with Chris Beverley and Tony MacDonald from Leeds over to Burnley, and John Tyndall was the guest speaker that night. And he gave an absolutely fantastic speech. The entire audience was mesmerised, not just by what he had to say, but by his delivery. John Tyndall was possibly one of the greatest orators I ever have had the pleasure of listening to. But John Tyndall wasn't just a speaker. John Tyndall was also a writer. He authored a book. He was the editor of Spearhead. And he was also a great leader. And John Tyndall, when I say he was a leader, he wasn't just a leader of the movement in the good times. He was very much wedded to the movement. And that meant for better or for worse. And that meant during the lean times, during the bad times, during the times when things were fractured, during the times when meetings were sparsely attended, John never gave up. He was still there at the front of the movement, leading the charge. But when I was driving over to this meeting today, I thought to myself, if I had to sum up John Tyndall in a phrase or a word, what would I use to sum him up? Well, I think the best word that anyone could use to sum up John Tyndall was that he was a visionary. He was almost like a prophet. He was a man who foresaw the problems that Britain and the British people, and also white Europeans all over the world, would face. But many people see problems. But John was a man of action. He was a man that couldn't sit back and do nothing. And he spent his life sounding the alarm. He spent his life trying to raise awareness of the coming storm that is now engulfing Western society. And in the 12 short years since his passing, things have got much, much worse. The downward spiral into the pit of degeneracy has accelerated. People often call it a slippery slope. But I kind of disagree with that, because a slippery slope just talks about something moving in one direction. But what we face is more like a snowball rolling down a hill. Not only does it continue in one direction, but it gathers pace and mass and accelerates and presents a larger threat year on year. But despite John Tyndall's visionary nature, despite the fact he foresaw many of the problems that we face today, that white Europeans face all over the world, I wonder if he walked in this door now, if even he would be shocked at some of the things that we are facing. And I say that because I too have become hardened to the things around us. I didn't think I could be shocked anymore by the things I saw. After spending 17 years in the movement, which to some people might seem like a long time, but to many others here, people like Richard, it's just a drop in the ocean. But I thought nothing would shock me, and I found it hard to get as angry and worked up as I used to do 10 years ago. It was almost like a sensory overload. I'd spent so long staring into the abyss that I'd become hardened to the problems that face our people. But the other day, something did shock me. Something did disgust me. And something did stir an anger inside of me that I haven't felt for years. Now, I don't know whether any of you, all of you, or some of you will have seen this, but I've discussed it in the past, and it has been discussed extensively in certain nationalist circles. There's a video doing the rounds on YouTube. It's a music video by a rapper. Now, if you look him up, it's not spelt extension like, a white Englishman would spell it, but in pidgin English, because these people always think it's amusing to spell their names wrongly. I'm not sure why that is. But this video was something that truly riled me. It was something that unleashed a wave of fury within me. This video saw this black rapper standing on a stage in a theatre. And as he stood on the stage, two little boys were led into the theatre by another black man. And these boys, one of them black, one of them a small, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, not unlike the young lad standing over there, probably around the same age. They stood there looking at each other. And from the side of the theatre extension, he came over carrying a noose. And he looked at both the boys as he knelt down, and he placed the noose over the head of the white boy. Then the white boy stood there in the centre of the stage, being stared at by the little black boy. An extension walks to the side of the theatre, and he begins to hoist the rope and hangs the little white boy. And when I say hangs, I don't mean it was implied. I don't mean it took place off camera and it's left to your imagination. I mean, you see the white child hoisted up. You see his feet twitch as he dies. And then you watch as he swings from side to side and dangles there lifeless on a rope. And all while this is happening, the little black boy does nothing to help him. He does not utter a word of condemnation, nor does he shed a tear. He stands there and watches.
What does the audience do?
The audience does nothing.
Is it real? Was he being murdered?
It's a music video.
It's not real, obviously.
It's not real. But the message of this video is clear, and the message is real. The message is that whites must go. The message is that we have to accept our own death and demise. That we have to feel guilt and shame for who we are, and ultimately we must sacrifice our children for the good of the world. Now, despite these horrors that might even shock John Tyndall, that even shocked me, facing us, the movement is possibly in the worst state I've ever seen it. It's fractured, it's disparate, it's disorganized. But the thing that gets me most and angers me most about the state of the movement is our movement has been hijacked. It's been hijacked by an insidious group of people. A group of people who want to push a false narrative. A group of people that tell us the only way for Western man is to make a choice. And that choice, that false choice, is that we either choose between Islam on one hand or multicultural degeneracy on the other hand. And yes, Islam is a huge problem. Islam has brought horrors to our once peaceful, high trust, high IQ society. It has brought with it the horrors of the grooming gangs, where small towns with a population of about 110,000 have seen over 1,400 young white girls systematically groomed, sexually assaulted, drugged, raped and abused. It's seen acid attacks grow all over our nation, where if a young girl dares to say no to the wrong man, she fears having her face burnt off. We've seen female genital mutilation rise to such epidemic levels, yet the police are yet, in Britain, to successfully prosecute anyone over these horrors. We've seen forced marriages. We've seen the indigenous people being forced out of their areas. We've seen towns and cities become like caliphates. So yes, Islam is a problem. But the solution to that problem can never be liberal degeneracy. Because whilst I don't want young British girls being forced to adopt the burqa, being forced into polygamous marriages, fearing having their faces burnt off or having their genitals mutilated, nor do I want young British boys going to school and being told they're second-class citizens, being told that daddy and mummy is as normal and as wholesome as the traditional nuclear family, which after all was the very building block and foundation of our Western society. I don't want feminism turning our young boys into little sissies. I don't want young boys coming home and saying they'd rather wear a dress, saying that they want a sex change at the age of 6. I don't want this poisonous liberal filth being poured into their minds. But equally, as that isn't the solution to Islam, Islam is not the solution to the liberal degeneracy. You see, there is a better way. There is a third way. And that is what John Tyndall talked about for his entire life. That is what John Tyndall fought for. And that is for us as a people to embrace our roots, to embrace traditionalism, to embrace our heritage, and to become who we once were. And believe me, more than ever, we need men like John Tyndall here today. Yeah. We need men who will stand up and be tireless through the good times and the bad. Because something else that defined John Tyndall was his belief that we could win, was his belief that we could still turn this round. And believe me, when we stand together as a people, when we embrace what once made us great, our own culture, our heritage and our traditions, when we throw off the shackles of individualism, materialism and hedonism and stand as one cohesive group, we can win. Because when we stand like that, we're not just good. We're not merely excellent. When we stand together as a group, ladies and gentlemen, believe me, we are the best. Thank you.
That's it.